Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something exciting that just happened in space. We're looking at that recent Pacific splashdown, the one involving the private space flight with astronauts from India, Poland, and Hungary. Yeah, so our mission today is to unpack this. We want to go beyond just the news alert and figure out what this event really tells us about, the future of space exploration, who gets to go, and what's happening with orbital stations. And we're drawing all this straight from a recent AP News piece that covered the whole thing. So let's dive in. Okay, so the main event. This private spaceflight ended successfully, splashed down in the Pacific off the Southern California coast. And it happened pretty fast. The SpaceX capsule had undocked from the ISS on a Monday. And then, less than 24 hours later, parachutes deployed back on Earth. Quick trip home.
Relatively speaking, yes, very quick return phase.
But what really caught my eye, I think, was the crew itself. 4 people, led by Axiom's Peggy Whitson.
Right, described as the most experienced U.S. astronaut. She was commander.
Exactly. But the other 3, this is where it gets really interesting for me. We've got India's Shubhanshu Shukla, Poland's Sławomir Wisniewski, and Hungary's Tibor Kapu. And the article points out this is the first time in over 40 years that astronauts from these specific countries have been in space.
Yes,
That's a long time, isn't it?
it absolutely is. And what's fascinating there, if you look at the history provided in the source,
Yeah.
the last time India, Poland, and Hungary sent people to space was way back in the late 70s and 80s.
Right.
And crucially, they launched with the Soviets then. So
Yeah.
this isn't just, picking up where they left off. It signals a completely different era,
Yeah.
a shift away from that sort of Cold War state-run model.
Okay, that definitely puts it in perspective. So a new dynamic. What about this mission itself, the specifics? How long were they actually up there, and who charted this whole thing?
Good questions. The flight launched nearly 3 weeks before they came back, so a decent stint in orbit.
Okay.
And it was chartered by Axiom Space. That's the Houston company.
Axiom, right. I've heard a lot about them.
You likely have. They're becoming quite prominent.
Yeah.
And up there, the astronauts weren't just, sightseeing. They ran dozens of experiments. And the article mentions they also celebrated their heritage, which is a nice sort of human touch to a very technical mission.
Yeah. That's cool. And the cost. I saw a number mentioned.
Ah, yes. The cost. Significant. India, Poland, and Hungary. The source says they each paid more than $65 million for their seat.
Wow. $65 million each. That's a serious investment. What does that tell us? Beyond just this one flight.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, like you said, that number is very revealing.
How so?
For countries like these, it shows a major commitment to getting back into human spaceflight. Perhaps finding a new way to access space outside of, building their own massive programs from scratch immediately.
Okay, buying access.
Essentially, yes. And this whole mission, it's Axiom's 4th to the ISS since just 2022. So it's part of a pattern, and it fits directly into NASA's ongoing effort, their strategy, to open up low Earth orbit to more businesses, more people, commercialization.
So NASA is actively encouraging this.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
here's the really crucial part. Axiom isn't just chartering flights. They, along with several other companies, are actually developing their own private space stations.
Ah, okay, so they plan to replace the ISS.
That's the explicit goal. NASA plans to essentially abandon the ISS, decommission it around 2030. It'll have been operating for over 30 years by then.
30 years.
Yeah. So what you're seeing with this Axiom flight, with these countries participating, isn't just a one-off. It's a glimpse into the next phase where commercial space stations are intended to be the primary orbital outposts.
So what does this all mean then? We're seeing this huge shift. NASA stepping back from operating the station, private companies stepping in. What are the implications, especially if it costs $65 million a seat right now?
That is precisely the central question, isn't it? This transition, it fundamentally changes the game for accessing space. We're moving away from an era dominated by government agencies and international partnerships, like the ISS model, towards one where private companies set the terms, the prices.
And maybe even the research priorities.
Potentially, yes. On the one hand, you could argue it might eventually make space more accessible. Competition could drive down costs, open doors for more countries or companies without needing giant national space programs.
Okay, a potential positive side.
But on the other hand, there are big questions about equity. Who gets access if the price tag remains incredibly high? Will scientific research, pure science, take a back seat to commercially viable activities?
Right. Who decides what happens on these private stations?
Exactly. It really redefines who gets a seat at the table in orbit, both literally and figuratively.
So we started with a splashdown in the Pacific, and we've ended up talking about a complete overhaul of how humanity operates in low Earth orbit.
Pretty much, yeah.
This deep dive really shows how one event ties together so many threads. You've got the return of these nations, India, Poland, Hungary, to spaceflight after decades. You've got ongoing science, and then this huge, undeniable rise of private companies. It's a very dynamic time.
It certainly is. And maybe this leaves you, our listener, with something important to think about.
Go on.
As we head towards this future, the one where private space stations are the norm, and considering the kind of costs we've just discussed, how do you think this will change international collaboration in space? And what does it even mean to be a spacefaring nation when access might depend more on budget than on building your own rockets? Something to ponder.